dear friend Dewey Freeman. How are you, sir?
I am doing incredibly well. It's beautiful out. It's 36 degrees for those of you who are in warmer climes. However, the sky is completely cobalt blue,
Wow.
not a
It
cloud
is
seen.
blue and beautiful here and gonna be a nice weekend. And I'm fully vaccinated, as are you.
Are
And
you? Good for
fully
you.
vaccinated, and I'm on Thursday, Friday, day 10 after, right? Isn't it 2 weeks after or 10 days after?
I think it's 2 weeks.
Okay, so but my grandkids were here this week, and I got to hug and love them and laugh with them and play some improv with them
Oh,
and eat with them and just be normal with them. Super, super fun.
how incredible is that?
Yeah, it's, there's going to be at least a movie, a television series, or a book called The Lost Year,
Yeah.
right? There'll be at least one. They're probably already being pitched in Hollywood. However,
And
this,
everything that happens behind the scenes.
well, there's so many. I mean, that's a 20-part or a 12-month miniseries, right? Starring
Right,
us.
exactly. So I think it's great that you got to be with your children and grandchildren. I actually, after my accident with my thumb, I rode my horse for the first time on Easter Day,
Hey, hey.
and we
Oh, and
hung
you
out with
had your
friends.
friend from a million years joining you. How was that?
Yes, it was wonderful. Julia, who is years ago was my riding instructor
Yeah,
and now
yeah,
my riding buddy,
yeah.
and we have been fast friends. I don't know, 23, 24, 25 years. Um,
We're going to
so
be friends for 23, 24, 25 years. I
that
got that
is
in me.
absolutely, absolutely.
Last week
So,
when we were talking, I took a couple of notes on some interesting ideas. As we're each one of these conversations feels like a journey to me,
mhm.
and we don't really have a destination. We have one kind of in mind. And what happens on any journey is you take little side trips, and sometimes those side trips you take a step two down the path, and you go, oh wow, that's a long way to the end of that one. And
Yeah.
I save it because I want to come back and go down that path, and that happened last week. This it was just one word, and it when we unpack it, it just meant so much, and it was the word transitions.
Mhm.
And so I thought maybe we'd start just by, when I say the word transitions, what's the first thing comes to mind for you?
Um, two things come to mind. One is creativity,
Huh?
and the other one is grief.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay, let's go with grief.
well, here's an interesting piece and transitions. My mother's birthday was yesterday,
Huh.
and my mother died in 2009. Um, and obviously, death is a transition.
Yep.
Uh, and I found myself grieving through the day, and it was probably maybe 2 in the afternoon where I went, "Oh, it's my mother's birthday today,"
Mm, mm,
and many times. And actually, when I realized that, it was like, oh, okay, that's what's happening for me,
mm-hmm.
and and that actually settled me. And then I went on with the rest of my day pretty nicely. Uh, Many of us will look for an opening, look for creativity, uh, maybe even moving from one house to another, those kinds of things. But to be able to move, when we begin our transition, we're also leaving something behind,
Mm.
whatever that is, even if it's wonderful, or even if it's not very wonderful and we're going, oh, we need to get the heck out of here. There's still a grieving process to be able to move on, to move
Even if it's
into
the
something new.
a trace element of grief, if you will. I
Hmm.
mean, as you say, when you're leaving something good to go to something better, that one good thing is now has ended. You believe there's a little, just a shade of grief along that.
Yeah, yeah, at least that, and sometimes even bigger. Um, but it's like one of the things that oftentimes happens as somebody will end a relationship, for
Mm.
instance, and they'll maybe start dating like the next week, and that new relationship almost always doesn't work out, almost always, because they haven't grieved the loss of the old relationship, even if they wanted to leave that old relationship. Um, and right there's a particular word for the new relationship that I'm totally spacing right now.
Rebound.
Yeah, the rebound relationship. And rebound relationships are oftentimes are a part of the transition, but they're also a part of the grief. Many times we go into a rebound relationship to prevent or try to deflect the grief from the earlier relationship. Um,
We have talked about avoidance um, a lot, and I think that is, I don't have to deal with it. I'll just go jump into someone else's
exactly.
bed, right? I don't have to deal with whatever that thing was, because
Hmm.
I believe we're equally complicit in failures of whatever it was. Personal. The
Exactly.
two words for me that instantly came to mind were personal and professional. I was just thinking of all the personal transitions. Yeah, absolutely relationships, but there's a lot. And I work with someone who has a business called Strategic Transitions, and
Mm.
she helps people that are in one level in an organization who aspire to the next level, how to manage that transition, plan for that, have the intentional
Hmm.
transition, and work their way up, knowing they're going to be at an institution, maybe their whole professional career. How do
Hmm.
they go from a teacher up to the university president, as it were, and how do you think about transitions? Which got me thinking then about my day job is helping organizations grow. We talk about this step function. So imagine you draw a line and then something happens that boosts you. You get a big tranche of cash, or a new product comes out, or there was something that just in one step puts you to a new level. And now you're at this new level. Then bam, there's another step.
Hmm.
And I was this morning was thinking, because I talk about that a lot, but I don't talk about the emotional or psychological impact of that transition on leadership. Because I think when you go from one level where you're doing great, or whatever it is in
Hmm.
life, and then there's a thing that's sudden. Let's call it a sudden, the first
Hmm.
unusual thing. Boom. Uh, I'm in new territory now. I don't
Brand
know
new.
what it's like up here. I climbed the mountain. I climbed the mountain. I'm at the top. Now I'm at a plateau. Oh, what's this like? Doesn't matter how prepared I am. And I think a lot about that. There's the beginning of the transition, one I want to keep talking about, but there's also the transition out of the transition, if you will, which is pretty meta,
Hmm.
but into your new normal.
So when people go from do that step up with the person that you're talking with, what room is made or what opening is made for people to actually grieve what they left?
That's where I'm struggling, because in the case of death, or the cessation of a relationship, or you got fired, or any one of those, and the step function is forced by a negative occurrence, right? There's a negative propellant as opposed to a positive propellant, a breakthrough in development. You get your first investor, you get whatever, you hire 10 people and the whole company changes, right? It steps up. I think, at least for me, that but I'm not a guy who looks in his rear view ever. So I'm looking forward, or not, and I don't even actually do that as much because I don't have worry, I don't have regret. I'm very in the now. I'm enjoying that ride up, if you will. Well, this these these step functions are very limited in time. They don't last forever. That's a different
Right.
thing. And so and they don't happen all the time. You don't get a lot of them. So it's almost like energetically, I I buckle in. I
Hmm.
enjoy the ride.
Well, that part I think is one is fabulous. The fact that you are able to do that, and that also many people allow themselves to do that and get really excited about it. But let's say, we hire 10 people and our company takes off. Um, if our company takes off, a lot of times that means more busyness, more stress, more work. And it isn't necessarily that we're in the middle of a huge grieving process. And at the same time, many people look back and go, oh, before I hired those 10 people, my life was much more sane, much more relaxed.
Sure.
And so it's that
Yeah.
level of
Yeah.
grief. It's like, I did not know what just happened.
You're still here.
Yeah. Um,
Well, it's
it's
like
just like actually what the kind of transition that you're talking about. And I've worked very hard to get to this place is this week. I is my first day of seeing clients for only 3 days.
right.
Last week, up until the last few months, I've been seeing clients 4 days a week. Before that, it was either 5 or 6 days a week. Is it impossible to tell you how excited I am to be only 3 days a week?
When would now
I
be a great time to tell me how excited you are, Dewey?
I am like over the top excited.
How great. That's
And
great.
there's this part of me that's the same thing. I'm down to teaching one class a year at the university where I teach. And it's like, there's a loss though of it's like, oh yeah, I can take on this client and I don't have to turn anybody away. And I can be seen as, somebody that can handle all of this stuff. And it's like, I still can do those things. And I'm doing that 3 days a week, not 6 days a week. So, so that ability to be the man who can take it all on, I'm limiting that. So there's actually a loss in that for me. Of, of
This is fascinating to me. Um, I I think the people that are the guys that are listening to the show are thinking, "Oh my God, he only worked 3 days a week. Good God!" And they're working, you know, like I
7.
said, I haven't taken a day off in a year, right? Just working it, but I do 4 different jobs, so it's my own. But
Right.
I ask for all of it. I think the strength comes from saying I don't you're self-confident enough. I don't need to be that guy. I don't, there's nothing to prove, right? Nothing to prove anymore. Being able to be the, yeah, I'll do it. Yes, yes, yes. No, it's like you're saying yes to Dewey, right? I want more Dewey time with the horses and Kimberly and just your life. We have a book to write, right?
Yeah. And exactly. In fact, I have a very good friend. His first name is Sam, who he and I've been going back and forth, and he just sent me a whole initial writing of something that I'll be going through today or tomorrow, because I'm actually meeting with clients today. Uh, so, but it's a transition. And for me to fully embrace a new place to be, I have to grieve the loss of, you know, being the person who can take on anything. Because can I still do that? Yeah, I can still do that. Do I want to still do that all the time? No, I don't.
Is there an identity thing wrapped up in that being the person, the go-to guy that everybody counts on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like and I have often said to people, I'm the therapist that people call after they've been to 8 other therapists and nothing worked.
You know,
And
I cook twice a week for families that have been, sheltering in place, and one of them texted me on Wednesday and said she's an event planner, and she said, "I've got a client. I'm under NDA. I can't tell you who it is. They're up in the valley, about a 40-minute drive. They need 2 fabulous salads like you make, delivered by 10 a.m. tomorrow." And on one hand, I was intrigued, like, who is this client? That would be kind of fun. But I was like, I don't have any time in my life, and I'm not going to I don't want to make time to make a couple salads and then drive them up. But in the not too distant past, I would have said,
exactly.
"Oh, yeah, perfect." And my son was with me because we were golfing, and I got this
Hmm.
text, Mark, could you kind of drop everything and do this? And oh man, I just really love this person I work for, and I really want to help her. And I said, I can't do that. And he looked at me and goes, and my son, he said, I'm really proud of you for saying no. And it was a moment. I'll tell you, it was a moment because
Hmm.
I'm not the no guy. I'm the yes guy. I'm like you. So maybe in a couple years I'll figure out, but I'm getting comfortable, more comfortable saying no, only because, um, I every hour is precious to me, and
Hmm.
I don't want. It doesn't matter if I'm getting paid or not. It's precious. I want to, even if it's. I'll say to Kimberly, I'll say, I just want to sit outside in the backyard and listen to the birds. That
Hmm.
I want to do that.
Well, and that I think also, I mean, you speaking of identity, it's like it is really cool to be the rescuer, the savior. It's like,
Yeah, right
yeah,
there you go. Yeah,
I can throw together salads and that, you know, and I can get them up there and I get to meet whomever this particular person was.
yeah.
And then I get to at some point go, yeah, I'm the one who did that. Um, and there is an identity, there is a ego piece built into that. Um, and it's a different energy and a different process. Hanging with your son and playing golf, or it's a different process for me, um, putting down road base where all the mud is my horses are standing in because of 6 feet of snow. Um, Nobody in the end goes, oh, thanks. Couldn't have done it without you. Um, and there is an identity in there, and there is a loss in not being that person sometimes. Um, but we all need to create an opening for a new place to be, a new place to transition to.
Hmm.
We, I think it's imperative to allow ourselves to grieve what we've lost, even if it was the loss of a dream.
Hmm. So I love the visuals. You know me, I'm always thinking in pictures. Like when you say create a space, I just see this opening. It's
Yeah,
actually blue and a little purple, and I just see this thing that opens up.
love it.
When so you're suggesting possibly just taking even if it's just take a beat to mourn the loss of the thing. And here's the deeper question, I think. that idea of the seven stages of grief, are you do those seven stages get compacted into one little thing in the case of a hey I'm hey thanks that was super fun, I'm going to miss being with you and I'm going on to my next super fun thing I'm going to do. um,
Mhm.
so that seven stages of grief that apply to typically to a death, um, is that something to look for? Are those stages applicable here in this context?
I think one is you're hitting on something. Yes and no. First of all, what you're hitting on is like the whole process of a shortened kind of a grieving process. That it doesn't have to be days long. It doesn't even have to be hours long. Sometimes it's an hour. Sometimes it's a realization. Sometimes it's, I mean, something like that. The other piece is, and I think the stages you're referring to are Kubler-Ross's stages. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who put
Oh,
together uh, the stages of grieving and death. Um, I actually, those are very powerful, and I don't know that they're always applicable. The and I'm a little bit hesitant to go here because it sounds like a little bit of self promotion, and I'm going to do it anyway. Um, I put together a whole developmental model that I work with and I teach therapists. And there are 7 stages. There are actually 5 stages in the early part of it. The first stage is the world okay? Second stage is am I okay? The third stage is how much can I do? The fourth stage is how well can I do it? And the fifth stage is who am I? And who am I is typically adolescence. The first stage is the world okay? It's typically infancy, and the others are in between those. When there is a loss, it's like, is the world okay? For instance, I have one of my brothers has died, and my mother has died in 2009. My father died in actually 87. But it's like, and I think I spoke about this. I've spoken about this a couple of times. With Traver, but it's like, is the world okay without my brother in it? Who am I without my brother? How much can I do without my brother? How well can I do it without my brother? Again, well, actually, it's, is the world okay? Am I okay without my brother? How much can I do? How well can I do it? And who am I without him? And those are the stages that make sense to me.
mm-hmm.
Um, like, is the world okay if I only work 3 days a week? Can I make enough money? Can I do what I want to do? Can I save money? Am I okay with only 3 days a week without getting certain kinds of input? How much can I do with other things? How well can I do it? And I mean, all of those things. Who am I? Because I've identified as a very hardworking educator, teacher, mentor for a therapist for a long time. And those are the stages that I believe that we go through. Is the world okay? Am
So
I
let's
okay?
talk about. So I'm going to get those 5, and then hopefully someone in the nation is going to write this down and put it, and then let's get a link to. Is this in a something that we can download and read someplace or
Oh yeah,
audiobook?
yeah,
Oh, great.
I
So we'll get
actually
that
I'm
to
writing the
Traver.
book, but I haven't. I,
So you
but
heard it
yes,
here first. So the 5 things. Number 1,
is the world okay?
number 2,
Am I okay?
number 3,
How much can I do?
number 4,
How well can I do it?
number 5.
Who am I?
So if that is, and I love that, and thank you for that because I'm using that.
You
So
please use that.
if that feels like it's the end of the beginning of the transition, because you end on this up note. Who am I? and
Exactly.
and 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 I would say, who am I, and am I prepared for the transition?
Exactly.
Right? Oh, good. I'm getting this. I love it when the doc says, "Yes, exactly." So I'm,
Oh,
I'm prepared.
exactly. It's like, yeah, yeah. You're all over it,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I'm
it is
prepared.
the end. It's like who am I and not doing what I used to do, and
Right,
now who am I and
right,
doing what I'm doing,
right, right.
and
Because
uh,
I think, Guy, I think we all struggle with this. I think we touched on it with identity. It's I remember having lunch with a guy and things weren't going well at work, whatever. He says, "Mark, you're not your job." And no one had ever said
exactly.
that to me before. You're not your job. You're Mark. Be
Hmm.
Mark. It's like, oh, yeah, but
Like,
I have
who
to
the hell's
be.
that?
Yeah, I don't know that guy. Have you met him? I'd like to have lunch with him.
Yeah, like bring him next time to lunch. We have a chair here for him.
Thankfully, I was young and that lesson stuck early, but it's a hard one to learn. We
Hmm.
aren't our relationship.
Right.
We're a part of the relationship, and I
Hmm.
think what happens, to your point, is the law, that transition. The loss is a certain identification with that thing that you were.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
was the person enjoying the carnival. Now I'm the person who's driving home and the carnival is over.
Right. Exactly.
It's a pedestrian example, but again, so going through the transition, I'm going to get back to an earlier theme from one of our first shows. I don't think you manage the transition well unless you have a high degree of trust in yourself.
Absolutely.
You had said something, or something came out of our conversation, and I have it written right here, and it's on my computer. It says, trust takes time.
Trust takes time, and trust. So trust takes time. What's interesting is trust doesn't just take time. It doesn't just take time to form trust between you and me. It, we also take time. It takes time for us to learn to trust ourselves.
And therein lies I believe, the key to the successful transition.
Exactly. So, what does that, in your mind, what does trusting yourself mean?
For me specifically,
Yeah, yeah.
is
If I
yeah,
say
yeah.
to you, "Hey, Mark, you trust yourself," and you go, "Yeah," well, what's that mean?
Uh, the universe has told me everything's going to be okay, and I trust the universe, and that's a
That's a
pretty deep
that's a biggie.
belief for me. Everything's going to be okay. God makes sure the birds have food. He's not going to ignore you. So everything's going to be okay. And just trust, yes, it probably going to be rocky, kind of going to be some ugly stuff, all of that. And we all have had every bit of that. But if you have a core belief, everything's going to be okay. Now you just take a deep breath, take a step, commit to taking the next step, engage your
Exactly.
parasympathetic system and your vagus nerve, as you've told us, and you just trudge on, and uh, I don't I don't know, because there's so much uncertainty in a transition. It's real. It's all new. I mean, it's all new, right? This is new, whatever new relationship, new job, new experience, new adventure. I'm transitioning from one thing to the other.
Hmm.
I think without trust in that, it might be tough, but I'm going to learn something. It's going to be fun. I'm going to, as again, if I talk to Kimberly, she said, it's either going to go well or you're going to have a great story to tell.
One of the two, or both.
Yeah.
So, part of what you're saying, what I love is like how big what you're saying is that you're allowing yourself to be part of something bigger, the universe.
I
The
I appreciate that you acknowledge that. I don't think it's a choice. I'm in the universe.
Well, that's true, but a lot of people won't allow themselves to acknowledge that.
Really?
Oh gosh, no. It's like so. Yeah, a lot of people
Is that
won't.
what we're going to talk about next week?
Maybe. So let me throw in a couple pieces. Yeah, that would be perfect. What's the universe? Let's
Stay
write that one
tuned.
down.
We'll see you next
So
week, kids.
yeah, exactly. Stay tuned. Um, in that process of trusting the universe, there's a couple of pieces that I ask people to allow to happen for themselves. One is to be able to be uncomfortable.
Correct.
So just because we're uncomfortable or just because we feel a bit miserable even doesn't mean that the universe isn't taking care of us.
Correct.
It just means that we're uncomfortable right now.
Right. So who was it that said this too shall pass?
I don't know, but
My dad, I think.
he probably was the first one too that said that. But the other piece is that trusting yourself, what I often speak to with people is for me to, if I trust myself, one is being part of something bigger. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it for me is being able, knowing that I can do what I need to do when I need to do it.
Hmm. Back to trust.
Back to trust, but that's trusting myself. Let's say that something would happen and I could no longer be a therapist. Well, I don't know what that might be, but it's like I can work at Home Depot.
Sure. Absolutely.
I
Yes.
can wait tables.
You wear a red vest. I could see, oh, there's that Dewey guy. He's going to tell me which nail to get.
Right. And exactly. It's like me knowing that I can do what I need to do when I need to do it
Yeah.
is that's what the trust piece is. I mean, even when I hurt my hand, it was like um, I knew that I would get through it. I was actually at physical therapy for my hand 2 days ago, and another woman was there being having her hand worked on too, and she was talking about her husband, and it was clear that her husband was. She was talking about a bone marrow transplant, so I assumed that he had cancer of some sort. And through conversation, she basically said, "Yeah, he has leukemia, and et cetera, et cetera." And it was like, and my comment was, you know, me harming my hand and losing the end of my thumb wasn't that big a deal. And I feel that. I mean, is it a big deal? Yes. Has it affected me? Absolutely. It's not life and death, though.
Right.
And it's like, you know, so that's probably the other thing is,
You, excuse me, but
is that
it
our
is,
next?
well, it is, I think this is an elder thing. It is our ability to put things into perspective,
Mhm. Yeah,
right? Uh, at 20, the reaction to losing the tip of your thumb may have been a devastating loss, which would have changed the course of your life. Um, the loss of a young love to a tragic accident. Like think of all of the think of all the paths, 525,000 paths that changed as a result of a death to COVID in this last
mhm.
year. All right, those are, but through being older and going through a lot of things, you're able to put things in perspective and not overreact and go, yeah, that was bad, but it's not that bad, or that was
Right.
bad, or it could have been worse, or however you justify that thing,
Hmm.
to just to not. And I'm curious. One of the things in meditation that I've been taught is to you kind of take the highs and lows out, and you get a
Hmm.
lot more
Hmm.
even keeled, right? observe that thing with interest. You don't get like that, or you don't get like that. You're even keeled. Doesn't mean you don't react and you don't have emotion, you don't have that kind of thing, but your resilience to forces outside of your control that try to throw you off track are are strengthened. And I think that's a muscle you could get when you're young. You don't have to be old to have that muscle. I
That
think I
would be
buried
true.
like four things in there, Doc. If you can help unpack that. I'm sorry. These Saturday mornings get me going.
Well, it sounds like what you're talking about is watching what's happening versus allowing what's happening to carry you with it.
Correct. Exactly.
And many people, since you brought up meditation, many people will talk about, and I think this is really part of transition too. I hadn't quite put this together quite this way before, is a lot of people will talk about non-attachment, from sort of a Buddhist perspective or a meditative perspective. And what that really means, and the university that I've taught at for 30 plus years is Buddhist-based university. So I have heard and worked with this a lot. And non-attachment doesn't mean not attaching to another person. It doesn't mean not attaching to our lives. What it really means to me is not judging what's happening.
Correct. Yeah.
It's like, I'm not a good or bad person because I made a mistake and got my thumb cut off, or I'm not a good or bad person because I missed a bill, or I'm not a good or bad person because in making love with my partner that I lost my erection. I mean, all of that kind of stuff. It's not, it walking without judgment to the best of our ability. I don't know anybody who doesn't judge sometimes.
It feels like that's a I don't think I was really introduced to that concept until I started meditating, which is now, according to Headspace, 1987 days ago of every single day. Was
1900?
1987. I have a little streak going on. Um, but I wasn't introduced to that concept before. And it just this one thing has such a profound impact. Here's just a very trivial example, but an example nonetheless. When I'm in a technology business and when something doesn't go well with the technology, Zoom's not working, the internet's down, the projector's not working, I can't connect, whatever. We've all had a billion of those things happen. I I escalated pretty quickly into a
Mm-hmm.
pretty bad state, which affected the state of everybody around me, and we couldn't fix the problem because my state was like that, frantic.
Right.
And I think it's through the this non-attachment to that now when something happens, it's really interesting to watch myself. I wish I had photographs of my face from 10 years ago and my face now. It's like, yeah, it'll come back. I'm not jumping, my hair's not on fire and all that kind of stuff. You kind of learn, you put stuff in perspective. Yes, is it an important meeting? Yep. Can we rebook it? Yep. Is
Yep.
it a show that stopped recording in the middle? Yep. Can we re-record? Yep. You
Yep.
know, and I'm not being, I, I am being a little light with it because I think if we uh, take things, it's not about taking them less seriously. I think it's, as you said, not judging. That's it. That's it. It's not
Right.
judging. And man, that's hard.
Well, and it's hard. And here's the crazy part, Mark. Developmentally, well, what you're talking about is a separation of personhood, who we are as a human being, from behavior, whatever's happening with us or in the environment. It's like, okay, so if I drop my coffee on the floor right now. It means I drop my coffee on the floor. It doesn't mean I'm a klutz and a bad person and blah, blah, blah. We actually learned that, begin learning that between 2 and 4 years old.
No kidding.
And it's literally that place. And that's why that stage of development is called, am I okay? Am I okay if I throw my oatmeal on the floor? Am I okay if I poop my pants still? And the messages that we need from parents is not good boy, good girl. It's like, I love you and it's, you did well. I love you and it's not okay to throw your oatmeal on the floor. I love you. You following what I'm saying here? Is that separation.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't learn it then, which many times we don't, because parents struggle sometimes, we have to learn it later. And that piece of, it's like, okay, so Zoom doesn't work. It doesn't mean that you're a horrible human being and that you don't know anything about technology. I mean, I know you well enough. You know more about technology than 99% of the people in the world. It's like, but if Zoom goes down, it has no bearing on your value as a human being and as a man and as a father and as a husband and none of that. And that's the, and so it does wrap around to the judgment. It's a lot of times we do this self-judgment that is just brutal.
Debilitating, isn't it?
Exactly. And that self-judgment.
There's another show for us, but so far I have 3 shows for us.
Okay, perfect. But that self-judgment is actually part of what stops transition.
Oh, because self-judgment means you didn't get through the 5 steps.
Right. And it's like, well, I'm not good enough to be promoted. I'm not smart enough to be promoted. I'm not
sexy enough to get another date. I'm not mature enough to keep a date. I'm not. It's there. It is. I'm not.
Yes.
Fill in the blank.
Versus I am okay versus I'm not okay.
Oh, we're back to I'm okay. You're okay.
You got it.
It's 1972, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Welcome home. And, but that piece is, I mean, today, starting at 9 o'clock, I'm going to go from 9 o'clock to probably 5:30 or 6 seeing clients today. I'll have an hour off for lunch. I will guarantee you that every person that I'm working with on some levels is going to be saying, there's something wrong with me. Well, there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with me. But that judgment is really devastating. It's like we cannot do transition if we're self-judging.
I want to end right there.
Perfect.
That is a perfect bookend and a button and whatever metaphor we want to use to the closing of something. Dewey, I love these Saturday calls. I hope that the members of the nation, what I would challenge you to do is really think about this and then comment in the nation on something that the takeaway that you had that is going to help you this coming week. And that may be something that another person heard as well, but didn't say anything. And because we're really doing it for you guys. And also this is therapy for us. So
exactly.
You're just getting to watch.
And can I add one invitation?
Please.
For each person in the nation to take a day and write down every judgment you have of yourself.
Ooh. And
be sure that you have 6 or 7 pages of something to write on, because we do this a lot. We do this a lot.
Okay, and, I love that challenge, the no judge challenge, and just keep track of those things. Dewey, I can't wait till next week. We've got a few things to talk about, and take care.
Take care.